Welcome to another COVID conversation. I'm Robert Kennedy III, and we are broadcasting from, well, everywhere. We've been having some amazing conversations over the last few weeks, having conversations about things like a medical perspective during this quarantine, during this time. We've been having conversations on mental health. We've also had conversations on finance. And now this week, we are having a conversation about education. What's been happening in the education space? How are parents and teachers and administrators to deal with what is happening right now? And what does the future hold? Are we going to do the same thing in 6 months? Are we going to do the same thing in 1 year? What is the education platform going to look like? Are we going to be in classrooms? Are we going to be completely virtual and digital? Well, listen, today we're going to have that conversation. I have got with me a lot of experts, a lot of credentialed people who have been in the education space for over, my goodness, if I put all of their experience together, we're probably at 100 years, right, guys? All right, we'll talk about that in just a moment. But I want to introduce to you my panelists. For today, we have got some very, very distinguished people. So I want to start out with introducing them and having them do a quick intro about themselves. So why don't we start out with Mrs. Dickerson, Lakeisha Dickerson. Why don't you go ahead and share with us who you are and what you're up to?
Hi, my name is Lakeisha Dickerson. I am a middle school, his social studies and English teacher. I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade English and social studies to students at G.E. Peters Adventist School in Hyattsville, Maryland. I am also a parent. I have a 10-year-old in 4th grade. I have a 18-year-old who's a senior in high school. I have a 22-year-old who's just graduated from university, and I have 2 additional children that live with me, ages 14 and 16, and we are all here coping with this pandemic.
All right. Let's move on to Jewel Ralph. Jewel, tell us a little bit about you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jewel Ralph. I'm an administrator in the public school system. I am a high school administrator. I have 2 children, one's 16 and one's 13, and we're all in different areas of the house trying to deal with this pandemic, Zooming, Microsoft Teaming, and everything else.
Yeah. All right. Carmen Starling, tell us a little bit about you.
Miss Starling, I am a 1st grade teacher in Howard County Public School Systems and a mother of 4, a 14-year-old finishing her freshman high school year. I have an 8th grader trying to figure out how we're going to graduate her. I have a 11-year-old and a 4-year-old.
Wow. And we have Dr. Keslin Stennis. Go ahead and share it with us.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. I am Dr. Keslin Braid Stennis. I am chair of the Department of Social Work at Coppin State University, and also a parent of 4 children ranging in age from 28 to 7. And I have to give a shout out to my son who graduated today from Morgan State University. Woo! Shout out to Freddie Stennis.
Wow. And finally, we have, not least at all, by just kind of getting started on the journey in some ways, Milan Scott.
Hi, everybody. My name is Milan, and I am a newly graduated. I graduated from Oakwood University with a BS in mathematics, and I will be going to Rutgers, actually starting at the end of this month, to do formulation science or personal care science.
Yeah. Wow. So we've got a range of people here, all the way from the newly graduated students up to administrators and doctoral candidates and people who have accomplished doctorates in this panel. So we've got a lot of experience here. But I want to really focus, when we start here, on the emotional piece of this. This was not expected by any of us. So when this started back in March, how were you feeling? What were the things that you were feeling? I want to throw that over to Carmen first.
At first, when we heard about the 2 weeks off, I said, yeah, okay, that's not too bad. But as they kept extending the times that we were going to be away from school and our students, it was a very sad feeling that came over me, just because I love teaching.
Wow. I want to go, Jewel, why don't you share your response to that same question?
When we first started this journey, I had a student that came up to me. It was on March 13th, and I remember distinctly seeing her in the hallway. And she said, "Miss Ralph, if we don't get through this, just please know that you are a good principal." And that really broke my heart because you could just see in her face that she was really, really scared. And I just, gave her a big hug and said thank you. And I got to see her this past week, so that felt good.
Yeah. Well, I want to go to one more person. Milan, tell us how you felt. What were you feeling when this whole thing went down and things shifted a bit for you?
So the transition from school campus to home was kind of rough. Not only am I an extrovert, but I feel like my love languages are physical touch and quality time with family and friends. And so social isolation is like the worst nightmare for someone like me. It's like living the same day over and over again. I can't go hug my grandparents. My semester was cut short. And just realizing that this may be a new normal for a long time. And I know a lot of students like me are feeling like, when is it going to end? So.
Wow. So one of the things that happened was there were a lot of changes that happened really quickly. Schools were then required to go to virtual, and a lot of platforms that maybe some of them weren't familiar with. So, Ms. Dickerson, why don't you tell us a little bit about what were some of the challenges that you encountered during that first week that you had to deal with this?
Well, I feel like I was a bit blessed because going into that week, March 13th, our school had already planned for a month of online learning at home. Wow. So I knew ahead of time, I had a feeling something was up. So I had already planned a month out. I'm a kind of type A personality. I love planning. I love to be ahead of. And if you remember, Bobby, I had planned that week we were going to have phone conferences and we were going to do it. And Bobby said to me, "Why don't you use Zoom?" I was like, "What's a Zoom?" I don't even know what that is. I said, "No, I want to use phone conferences." He's like, "Keisha, I think you should use Zoom." And he hooked me up. And that very first week, I had transferred all my discussions, all my lessons I just did what I did in the classroom in front of a camera. The hard part came for me having to transfer everything, like worksheets and stuff, having to type everything over, put everything into like a test maker online. Mm-hmm. It was very time consuming. And I don't think I've ever worked as hard as a teacher, just trying to make things appropriate in the platform for online learning. And I had a heads up. I cannot imagine, and I'm teaching older kids, so I think it's a little bit easier with older kids. I cannot imagine kindergartners, first, second, third graders having to translate, like, how do you teach handwriting? Wow. on Zoom? Like, how do you do that? I don't know. But for me, I mean, it wasn't as hard as it was for other people. And I had parents who helped me just acclimate myself to the new technology. And it's been great so far.
Excellent. Dr. Stennis, what about you? What were some of the challenges that you were hearing about as this started?
So interesting that I had just come back to work this same week from just being away on medical leave. So when I came back, I stepped into COVID-19. Fortunately, most of our faculty had already gone through much of the online training, kind of like you, Ms. Dickerson. We'd already kind of gotten some of that training. And so we were equipped, but we weren't ready. I think we weren't ready for the emotional part. There have been so many of our students who have been impacted and their families have been impacted. In fact, we had a student whose funeral was today, an alum whose funeral was today. We weren't ready for that. We weren't ready for the emotional tug. We weren't ready to meet the needs of our students who didn't have laptops. And my university is we serve a population that is high need. And we just weren't ready to meet their needs. And I wasn't ready to make the transition from being parent professional to teacher professional in the same week at home. That was difficult, but we're here, but it was difficult.
Let's talk about that laptop issue just for a second. I think one of the things that happened during this transition was there were a lot of things that we took for granted. I know that I took certain things for granted until I had a call with Ms. Ralph. where she was sharing with me some of the things that she was experiencing in her school. So, Ms. Ralph, what are some of the things that you are experiencing that maybe the majority of us don't really pay attention to?
So I teach students of trauma, and we don't necessarily have everything that my student may have, my child may have. So when I was talking to Bobby about the whole Zoom and the whole platform that was going to be used for my county, I told him, I said, Bobby, my kids are just trying to live. They're trying to eat. They may not have the internet.
Wow.
So I may have to deliver packets to them. I may have to go and try to find a computer for them. And what was happening, that was exactly what was happening in my community. And there's specific areas in this district that are high COVID cases, and those were the cases and the areas that were affecting my children. So they were just trying to live and survive.
Wow. So Carmen, you're in Howard County, which is a little bit different than Baltimore. What were some of the challenges that you were seeing from the parent side, or maybe things that we don't normally think about that are coming out of Howard County?
So our teachers did not have a heads up. And so everything that I had to learn, all the platforms that I had to do, all the videos that I had to make, and all the closed captions that I had to do for my own videos, I had to learn myself. It was all asynchronous, which means I go on the computer, I read what I have to read, and then I do what I have to do. And I'm not a computer savvy person. So that was a big, big challenge for me. As far as the students were concerned, many students in our county didn't have computers either, because we go from Western Howard County all the way down to Laurel. So there were many students that didn't have computers. Right. Howard County tried to get every student a computer, but there are still kids that don't have computers and are expected to do this work to get a passing grade at the end of the quarter.
Right. So I want to throw this out to anybody who feels free to jump in on this. So parents that don't have computers, kids that don't have computers, families that don't have computers, what are some of the things that they can be doing right now to keep up, not get lost, not get left behind in their education? Are there things that they can tap into?
Well, for my population, they have phones, and I have phone trees going on with my teachers. And the conversation is, if they can call in, you're going to teach them something over the phone. Mm-hmm. So we just try to reach out to them that way. And the kids that don't have access to either computers or the internet, I have personally driven the packets over to their house.
Wow. Wow. Anybody else? Ms. Dickerson, I know that you were personally driving Chromebooks to some students. Tell us a little bit about are there resources? Are there things that people can access if they don't have computer and internet?
To be honest, again, our school is blessed. My middle school I just happened to raise money for Chromebooks for our middle school. So I had 30 extra Chromebooks for us to take to our students. I mean, if you don't have internet access, I know that there are places, I know in Maryland that were giving free hotspots. I know Montgomery County was doing that. Mm-hmm. I know most of the counties are giving out Chromebooks. Again, if you have a phone, you can log on that way. Go to the McDonald's, you can log in that way. But I know teachers are delivering packets. Teachers are doing, which is good for reinforcement. But if you have an 8th grader or a 9th or a 10th, 11th or 12th grader that has, curriculum that they have to get through, there's learning that has to be done. It's a little difficult to learn, out of a packet without somebody teaching you. So if they don't have access, it's very hard. It's very hard to get new learning done.
Wow. So just to the audience, those that are listening, those that are watching this, if you do have questions, feel free to share those in the chat. We won't be able to get to all of them, but we definitely want to share some of those with the panelists as we go along. So one of the questions that I'm hearing, Jewel, is people were not clear on what a phone tree is. Can you share with us what that is? Okay.
So in my school, I have a setup where every student has a mentor. And the mentor calls the student every week just to check in with them socially, emotionally, as well as academically. Mm-hmm. And if it's an academic issue, we try to reach out to the actual teacher and give them a time frame in which they need to call the teacher and ask questions based off of whatever curriculum that there is for them. So my teachers have office hours every day. And that's the time in which the kids can call in to ask any questions that they need. And the teacher can actually pull up the curriculum and have that type of interaction with them over the phone to teach them over the phone if needed. And what was something else we found out, that our community, our students may have gaming systems. So we taught them how to go through the gaming system to get access. They may not have had the laptop, but they have the gaming system.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome. I mean, these are things that we don't think about. We take for granted the privileges or the amenities that we have. So it takes a lot to support. They say, it takes a village, right? So as we talk about emotional support, let's talk about support for a moment. Milan, what were some of the things, or what are some of the things that students did or can be doing to support each other during this time?
So with my school, I know a lot of our students have been posting on social media about ways that we can study better, even though we're not in the classroom. We've been giving emotional support, like in our group chat, students are talking about, hey, is there anything I could pray for? It's really emotional support. That's really all that we can do right now for each other, student to student support. So I know that our teachers have been very accommodating as well. All things considered, but as far as student to student.
Okay, so that's student to student. Let's ask from the teacher perspective, what are some of the things that parents can be doing better to support emotionally students during this time? Let's start with Miss Stennis, Dr. Stennis.
Oh, I would say that the first thing that parents have to do is accept the fact that this is a new norm, right? This is not normal. I even look, at my own children and I think, how are you coping? They've been on their devices more than usual. They've been, but I have to encourage parents to check in with your children. Ask them, how are you? Ask them and bring up, I noticed this. Are you okay? I think we have to open up the conversation with our children. That would be the first and most important recommendation.
Excellent. Ms. Dickerson, what about you? What can we do to emotionally support our children?
I think it's very important what Dr. Stennis said about checking in with them. I've noticed that, especially with my 7th graders, they crave the time we spend with them on Zoom. Like they want to reach out and touch, they want to talk, they want to stay on, they want to go into next month after school's over because they don't have anything. So you need to make sure you're talking to your kids and asking them if they're okay. Do you need to talk to somebody? Do you want to call your friend? Do you want to, I guess we don't really have play dates or whatever, but just making sure that they're not overwhelmed, that if they need to talk with their friends, if they need to talk to someone, that they have that there for them.
Okay.
Can I jump in just a minute? Just a minute, Ronald?
Go for it.
Yesterday, my 7-year-old, most of you all know my very busy, energetic 7-year-old. She was sitting there and she said, "Mommy, I miss school." I said, "I'm sorry. What do you miss the most?" She said, "I miss my friends. I miss PE. I miss hugging my teachers." She just went down the list of what she missed. And then she said, "Mommy, we only have 1 week left and I won't get to see my friends. And I'll miss my friends for the entire summer." Your heart breaks because this really is their lived experience. And all I could do was say, "I know, baby." And it hurts. And give her a hug. But that hug meant the world to her because she's getting less of that because she's been home. Right. So that was just a very real situation for the youngest.
So Dr. Stennis, you have a child that was able to verbalize that to you. Let's talk about for a second, what about kids that are not as verbal or kids that may not be emotionally able to connect with a grown-up in the same way? Are there signs that we should be looking for that will help us to recognize maybe when a kid is not just zoomed out, but overwhelmed by what is going on? What are some signs that parents should be looking for? Carmen, can you answer that?
that they're not their normal selves, that
Mhm.
if they're bubbly and jumpy and jokey, if they're sitting over in the corner and just not being their normal selves, that's a definite sign that something's going on.
Mhm.
Or if they're eating more than they usually eat, or if they're trying to stay away from their family members and they're used to always being around their family members, a definite change in their personality is something that we should notice.
Right. Right. Anybody else? I want to throw that to anybody else. What should we be looking for?
If they're sleeping too much,
Wow.
they're more than likely depressed for the older students. I mean, unless they're gaming all night. But for the older students, I've had some of my students end up in the hospital for depression because this is really affecting their whole livelihood. Life as they know it has been totally affected. So we have to kind of monitor. That's why I do emotional check-ins, and I check in with the families, asking the families, what do you need?
Yeah.
Do you need food? Do you need money? Because there's systems out there that can help them.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that parents themselves, because parents are being thrown into this in a lot of ways, and some of the parents are not equipped. They don't know the technology. They don't know how to support their kids, or they want to do it, but they don't have the skill set to do so. So what are some of the things that parents can be doing to learn to equip themselves to be even better supports during this time?
I think parents should take a step back and realize that this is not going to go perfect. None of us knew how to, like, just even becoming a parent, you don't know the steps to doing it. So this is like a new part of parenting that we've never experienced before. So we have to take a step back, and we have to realize that this is going to be different, and reach out to friends. There are friends that you can call. There are teachers. Call your teachers, bug your teachers, call them and ask them for whatever you need from them so that they can help you.
Yeah, these are teachers telling you to call them parents and people. So I just want you to make sure you know that. Ms. Dickerson, can you share with us what should parents be doing to equip themselves even better now?
Again, I work with older students, and so I would definitely mirror what Carmen said. Talk to your teacher, because your teacher is the one who is implementing the lessons online for you. And if there's something you're not understanding, if there's some kind of communication issue, I've had to stay on after a class with a parent and a student and work the kinks out with them. The teacher will be happy to do it because we want the students to be successful. So talk to your teacher.
Wow. So Milan, what has been, from an educational perspective, the biggest impact for you in this?
My teachers being accommodating and understanding that this is something that no one expected. I've had a teacher say, hey, I know that the deadline is right now, but I'm going to give you an extension if you need extra help. So teachers being understanding that we've never gone through this before.
Wow.
I had a parent come to me yesterday. She emailed me and said, I didn't do any schoolwork this week. It's been an emotional week for me. I have no family members here. It's me and my daughter. She's very busy, and I have emotional concerns for myself. So I don't have the capability this week. She said, give me a pass this week. I just couldn't do it.
Wow. Dr. Stennis, so part of the challenge of all of this is that parents who were, let's use a 2-parent home. Parents who were out of the house working, now they're home, and now they have kids, in some cases, multiple children, and not just multiple children, but children across different age ranges. Okay, so a parent might have an elementary school, a middle schooler, and a high schooler, or in Ms. Dickerson's case, all the way from elementary through college. So you're dealing with all of those. How does a parent really manage some of that work-life balance when everything's swirling?
You tell me. No. In reality, we have to accept that we can't do it all.
Yeah.
And that is difficult. For those of us who enjoy our jobs and we're accustomed to producing and we're accustomed to doing all things well, or at least we do our very best, it is difficult to accept that you can't do it all, but you can't do it all. And
Wow.
so I have given myself grace to say, and I will say to my children, I'm only one person, so you have to wait. I'm establishing those boundaries. I have a schedule. Usually for me, it means I'm up earlier in the morning so that I can at least spend half a day doing schoolwork with my children. And then I have to do my work later on while they are spending more time on their electronics than I would normally like. But this is not a normal, this is not what we have been accustomed to. So we have to extend grace to ourselves.
Wow.
And know that you won't be able to do it all. And it's okay. Everybody else is in the same boat as we are. It's okay.
Yeah. So, Ms. Carmen, why don't you're a parent and a teacher that has that range as well. How are you doing? What are you doing to deal with those different grade and age ranges?
I am making sure that the older ones take responsibility for their own actions, because I have 14, 13, and 11. They are capable of doing things. I still have to get on them every so often and make sure that they've done what they need to do, which there hasn't been 100%, but we're not all perfect. And then my 4-year-old is getting the stiff arm, even now as we're doing the Zoom. It's, you have to be able to realize that, listen, this is a different era, it's a different time. And you just have to make sure that they need to know that you love them. They need to know that you care. They need to know that they're still expected to be excellent and do their best and, make it work.
Yeah. Jewel, what about parents that have to deal with children that have special needs? How do they manage this time? It's a different thing to deal with kids of different ages who are in what we would call regular school, right? And I hope I don't say that minimizing anyone. What if I'm a parent that has special needs, a child with special needs?
So it depends upon what school system, if they're in public or private. Public school systems have it set up that if they are receiving special education services, they are still supposed to receive it throughout this COVID-19 pandemic that we're having. And they have structures set in place either through Google Meets meetings, Microsoft Teams meetings. Some of my teachers hold resource classes to help the students that need special ed services. So there's different counties have it set up differently. However, if you're in a private school and you were receiving special education services, the private school will more than likely have something set up as well. But if they do not, definitely reach out to the administrator or the teacher that was giving your child services and see if you can work something out.
Okay. Anyone else? Ms. Dickerson, do you have any additional information on what parents can be doing, what resources they can be accessing if they have children that are on IEPs or that have some other special needs?
I definitely think in my school, in private school, if we have students with IEPs and they were getting modifications, that should continue. And if you're seeing, and what I've seen in the class is sometimes it's very difficult, and there may have to be some one-on-one meetings, some one-on-one time with those students outside of the regular ed class. But as a parent, if you're seeing that your child's not understanding something, or if your child's not getting the learning, you need to reach out to that teacher and say something. Say, look, I've noticed A, B, and C. Is there a way that we can meet with you outside of class? Is there a way that we could figure something out? And the teacher will most likely, work with you. But you have to advocate for your child and make sure that what was happening in the classroom is still happening.
Right. What are some of the other educational resources that parents should be accessing? I know that when we talked earlier, somebody mentioned Khan Academy. What are some of the other things that parents should be doing right now to really supplement and help their children navigate this?
If you're asking me, I think that if you feel like right now that your child is lacking in something, or if there's some gaps or something, you can definitely, there are websites that you can go. I do English and social studies, readworks.org, any free apps, free online resources, that newsela.com that have essays, short stories that they can practice with, because that's the one thing that works. Practice, practice, practice. Even I've had people ask me, okay, what's going to happen in the summertime? There's no camps. What are we supposed to do? Should I put my child in summer school? It's online anyway. There are things out there that you can access, websites that you can do, especially with the middle school and high school students, if they can practice even on their own, to keep their skills up, because you don't want to lose anything until we meet again in the fall or whenever we're going to get back together. Keep your children practicing.
Yeah. Carmen, Dr. Stennis, are there any other resources that they should be accessing?
Most public libraries have their website is available. I was looking at Howard County's the other day, and they have food pantry options on there. They have different activities that students can do that are all free.
Yes.
Almost every educational website right now is free. So ABC Mouse, all of them are free so that parents can have access to different education things for their students and their children to use. So go online, Google free educational resources, and a plethora of stuff will come up.
Okay. Dr. Stennis?
Carmen said it.
Okay. All right. So from the student or from the college perspective, Milan, are there resources, are there things that you started to access and look at differently than you were doing when you were in the regular classroom? Are there things that you would recommend for other college students?
Yeah, so I'm a math student, so I rely heavily on Chegg to, if there's something that I don't understand, I'll have to use YouTube or Chegg or Khan Academy. Sorry.
Can you spell Chegg so that people can?
Sure. Chegg is CHEGG.
Good.
Chegg.com.
Yeah.
And it'll give you access to professionals in that whatever subject you are working in.
Okay. So what about kids? We're hearing some words that we may not be done with this right now. And in the fall, the state of Maryland has already said that the colleges, the higher education, are going to start virtually in the fall. Okay, so I want to kind of have you as educators take me through what we should be expecting. How do we start to prepare for the fall? And I want to start with the kids who have not been to school yet. I want to start with the kids who might have been in pre-K or in kindergarten in the fall, but have, never been to school. Parents had these expectations. Yep, they're going to go to school. I'm going to be free, right? What should parents be doing with younger kids right now to prep them for the fall, possibly being virtual?
So just go ahead and cry about it. and like right now, with you just saying that makes me want to just cry because I'm a teacher. But I also have Zachary, who should be going into kindergarten in the fall. Do I put him in school? Do I do homeschool? Do I just supplement with stuff that I already know how to do? Mm-hmm. Parents, they need to take a real step back and figure out what they want to do. Where do they want them in school? Are they capable of doing homeschool and working at the same time, or do they need to get them in an online program in a school building online program or other options that are out there? They just have to take a moment and decide exactly what they want to do if this their child.
Okay, Jewel.
It's going to be challenging because this is a new norm. And there's so many things that we are just not sure of, but planning has already started in a lot of counties based on what it's going to look like for next year. The governor and the state superintendent did give some guidelines as to some things that we can do before we get a full opening, but it's going to be building the plane in the air. We just don't know.
Wow. So what about kids that are making the transition? My son is graduating from 8th grade and going into high school. They're going into a new place. It's not the same school. It's a totally new setting, and it may be virtual. How do we help our children to make that leap or that transition?
You're going to have to actually talk to the principal and see how they are planning for that leap. How they're planning for that child that's coming in as a kindergartner or as coming in as just brand new, what type of programs, what virtual meet and greets are they going to have online so that the child feels comfortable. So that's going to be a virtual conversation that's going to need to go on with the parents and the child, so the parent and child can feel comfortable with their new norm.
Bobby, I just wanted to jump in. For me, as you were talking, I think, and maybe it's different in public school and private school. First of all, I'm not claiming that we're not going to be in school in August, because I want to be in my classroom. But if we're not, I really think that as educators that we need to look at our curriculum and look at what we're teaching and what we expect our students to know. And if it's going to be a virtual learning, we have to make sure that we are able to translate whatever we were doing in the classroom to a virtual atmosphere effectively. Because what I don't want to see for my child is, a whole lot of worksheets coming home, a whole lot, I need to make sure that the same education that he was getting in class, that they will get virtually. Right. And how do I ensure that? So when you said talk to your principal, that's definitely true. But as educators, I know that for me, this summer, I have to make sure that all of those things that I was working on during the school year, I'm able to do it virtually, because at the end of the day, when they leave my classroom, I'm responsible for making sure that they have that learning. And, we just can't get by with giving them, because kids know when they're learning something from what you're giving them, or if you're giving them busy work, if you're giving them worksheets to say that you're doing something. We have to make sure that what we're doing is effective. And if it's virtually all 8th grade, that when they graduate at the end of that 8th grade year, they have the same thing, the same information that anybody else would have gotten in a regular classroom.
So you just brought up something important. You mentioned public and private. You said it depends.
I only said that because I know in the public school, there's, you have administrators who kind of make sure that this is happening and make sure that that's happening. And but in my classroom, at the end of the day, the curriculum, it's me and that student in my classroom. So I feel like the onus is on me to make sure that it's done.
Here's where I want to go with that. You're talking about public and private, and we possibly, if we start virtually in August or September, parents have to now make decisions. And so some of the decision is that if I'm going to a private school, I'm paying tuition. I'm spending money. And if I send my child to a public school, I'm not spending that money. Mm-hmm. Is there guidance that you can offer for parents that may be thinking about this entire shift from a financial perspective as it relates to public versus private in the fall?
You're asking me?
I'm asking anybody, just and any guidance that you can share.
I tell every person, you have to do what's best for your home and for your child. Mm-hmm. But again, you have to look at what are your schools offering you. If you believe that your child's going to get the best well-rounded education, if you believe that a Christian curriculum, a Christian teacher, a Christian background, everything taught through a Christian lens is important to you, then you have to make those decisions. I'm not in your pocketbook. I'm not in your house. So you have to decide what is important to me. For me, my child's going to be at G.E. Peters because those things are important to me. And I know what kind of education he's going to get. And I know everything's taught through a Christian lens. I'm very comfortable with that. Other people might feel differently.
Okay. Dr. Stennis.
Yeah, I would say that I agree with you, Ms. Dickerson. Those decisions are really based on your values and the values of your home. And while no one can make those decisions for you, but you. So it may mean that your child stays at their school, but you have to find another way to supplement because you're not comfortable with their preparation for online learning. It may be that you want to send your child to a public school, but to save the money, or you may not see the benefit of paying for tuition, but then you'll have to supplement with that extra piece that they're not getting that they used to get. But those decisions really are private decisions that have to be based on your values and the values of your home and what you want for your child.
Okay. I would definitely look at both and really just evaluate what is going to be in the best interest of your child. I would speak to administrators of both schools and weigh it in a logical sense. If it has to deal with the bottom line of money, weigh it in a logical sense. If it has to do with education and Christian education, you definitely have to do with whatever is in the best interest of your student, of your child.
Right.
So it could go either way, but like we're not in everybody's pockets, so we don't know what's going on.
So let's get even more specific with that. What are some of the questions as I'm weighing that I should be asking? It's from a curriculum perspective. How do I weigh one or measure one against the other? You know, what are some of the questions I should be asking myself? And let's start with Carmen. What are some of the questions I should be asking myself as we weigh even what we call a financial decision?
And I'm in that position. I have a child in high school and I have one going to high school. Do I want to have to supplement high school education online, or am I going to leave that to the responsibility of the school to make sure they've done everything that they need to do? I also have a kindergartner. Am I sending the kindergartner to pay for kindergarten, or am I going to supplement that at home? Ask yourself what is most important to you and your family, and what level of education your kid is at. It may be different for different kids in your house. Some of them may be going to private school because of their age, some of them, or their academics that you want them to get, and some of them may not be because of their age. So make sure you ask yourself, what do I specifically want for this student, for my child at this age?
Wow.
So to be a little bit more specific for me, I would ask the question, is this going to be an asynchronous lesson or a synchronous lesson, which is happening in real time?
Right.
What does that mean, Jewel? Some people may
An
not.
asynchronous lesson is when you do the lesson and you just post it and they can just access it. Synchronous is the teacher's in front of me on Google Meets or Zoom, and we're having that interaction and they're actually teaching the lesson the way Lakeisha would be teaching the lesson. Right. So you may not get that in a public school. You're going to get that at a G.E. Peters and Lakeisha's class. So you have to ask yourself that question. What's going to be, how does my child interact? What's best for my child? Do they need to see that person in front of them, or can they interact asynchronously?
You know, Bobby, it's funny, like last year, if you'd asked me that, I would be like, when you're looking at a school, you ask them about their test scores. You ask them now they're not even taking tests anymore. Correct. So I'm like, how are teachers evaluated? Everything's changed now. So we really have to just change the way we think. And that's not easy for me.
Yeah. So I want to ask Milan. So if you had to do, you're finished college now, but if you had to make a decision, let's say going into your junior year, right? Between going to a private religious denominational school and now you're at home and staying and doing something online, local, virtual, what would you be looking at? What guidance or what would drive your decision?
Well, first of all, I think that it would be important to think about how important having a spiritual relationship with your teachers, being able to talk about God in the classroom is to you. But that's not a linear answer. I feel like that's something that you'd have to think about yourself. And I also think that you should look at how schools have handled the transition this past semester. Like, for example, Oakwood, they saw our students struggling and they adjusted our grading system. So I think that that's something that should be taken into consideration, how the teachers care about you or stuff like that.
Okay. So I want to pause on the spiritual impact just for a moment. How did that really affect you? Was there a difference for you in leaving the school and coming home? Was there a different spiritual impact that had for you?
Yeah, there was. I feel like now the days are like morphing together. So it's hard to remember when the Sabbath is. And then also when I was at Oakwood, I was in DP, I was in AY. So I had stuff to do to bring me closer to God. And a lot of students don't have that when they go home. So there definitely is a spiritual aspect. And especially when you're on campus, everything you do is surrounded by what campus that you're on. Your whole life is engulfed by the campus that you're on when you're in university.
Wow. Any other guidance for kids that are in the college? I'll throw this over to, let's have her mom answer that question. Lakeisha, any other guidance for public versus private, or just staying home? Any other guidance for kids that are in that space in college?
Here's the thing, like with college, and Milan knows this, the pocketbook is important because we have to live. And I don't know. I mean, looking at how, Oakwood made the transition, if I had a freshman that was going to college and they told me that the first semester was going to be all online, I don't know that I would send my child to Oakwood or to a private school and pay all of that money for general ed classes that could take Howard Community College for, a quarter of that amount. If it's just going to be online, they're going to be sitting up in my house anyway. So I would really tell parents to think about that. Do I invest in private school education at the college level when it's right here? You know what I'm saying? And they're not going to get the campus life experience. They're not the stuff that we pay for in Oakwood or for whatever private school you're going to. That's what you're paying for at the college level. I would definitely tell parents to tell that student, and then did all of our universities make the transition well? Wow. Were all of them able to, because college, there are a lot of people suing universities right now, wanting their tuition back because the online learning experience that they have was not quality. It's not what they paid for. They're doing, one I read, he wants his money back because his thesis was supposed to build a plane. How am I going to build a plane from home?
Yeah.
I want my money back.
So let's step back from college just for a moment. I think as we talked about the transition to virtual in September, one of the options that parents may consider at this point also is homeschooling. What are the differences between deciding to homeschool my child and allowing them to do virtual school? Dr. Stennis, why don't you start with you?
I was so thinking I am not the one to answer that. I could never homeschool my children. No, I really, to be quite honest, I think I would be doing my children a disservice to homeschool them. That's not my area. It's not my strength. So I probably need to pass the baton to someone else.
Well, no, don't pass it yet. I want to ask, I want you to pull on that just a little bit. How do I know as a parent that I'm doing my child a disservice? What are some of the things that I need to be considering from a parenting perspective if I'm considering homeschool as one of my options?
Sure. So for me, it is very difficult for me to separate mommy from teacher. Mm-hmm. And those roles do have, in my opinion, to be distinct, even though you carry both of those roles. I don't do that well.
Wow.
My child came to me, the 7-year-old, needing help with a timeline. Well, I know how to tell time, but I don't know how to explain how to map out the time on a timeline. You add up it's difficult for me to explain that to her. So I actually wrote to her teacher and said, look, I'm having difficulty explaining this. I need help. But if I'm homeschooling, I don't know that I would have those same type of supports or network.
Wow.
So it literally, I don't think I would be helping my children in the way that they could be if I homeschooled. I have a hard time differentiating, and there are some things that I wouldn't know how to explain. I could probably do some research and figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, that would be difficult for me.
So let me throw that to Carmen also. Carmen, I know that your family has had some homeschool experience in the past. So now we're here again where it's virtual. What are some of the things that parents should be looking at or considering if homeschool is an option that's on the table?
Homeschool is not easy. It takes as much or more work to, like Dr. Senna said, separate between mother and teacher, because you're saying, you should know this already. You're my child. Like, haven't I taught you this already? You should already know this. But just being able to separate, it's still a lot of work. You still have to find a curriculum that works for you.
Yeah.
You still have to research what curriculum you think is best. Is it going to be a public school online, or is it going to be a Christian school online? There are still things that you need to ask yourself about. Can you separate between, all right, I need to explain to you photosynthesis, and I still have my work to do? Or can you, you have to figure out what's best for your family and if it's going to work for you.
Wow.
May I add something else to consider is I still have to do my full-time job.
Correct.
So I don't know that I would have, quite honestly, the patience to do what needs to be done for an elementary school child and keep my full-time job. Now, if my children were older and they were more independent, then I probably could homeschool because the exchanges would be very different.
Wow.
But for elementary school children, with my personality, my job, and all of the other expectations of me, I don't think I could do it well. And I have to be honest with myself and say, not the answer for me.
Wow. So, Jewel, do you know of any resources that parents can begin to access as they begin to make these decisions, as they begin to process and figure out which way do I need to go for the fall? What are some of the places that they can go to help them make those decisions?
The Maryland Department of Education, they have a whole list of different homeschools, different programs that parents can look into. They can go and they can look at all of the county's websites to see what programs that they're using. But I would, if you're thinking about homeschooling, you need to go to the Maryland Department of Education because you need to see which homeschool is accredited.
Wow. So I want to, we're pulling close to our wrap up time. So are there any other resources that we should be considering overall as we begin to maybe look at this as the future of education in some ways? I know Ms. Dickerson is shaking her head. She wants to be back in her classroom, but what if we're not? What if we're not for the next, I'm going to extend this. What if we're not for the next year and a half or 2 years? What are some of the things?
Year and a half or 2 years.
I'm making it up. All right. What are some of the things that we should really be considering and equipping ourselves with as parents, students, and even educators right now?
A mental health support group.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. All
And
right.
also
I definitely
considering-
think, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was
No.
going to say, I just think as teachers, I would definitely invest in getting to know all the platforms that are out there, figuring out which works best for me. I know that this summer I'm looking at doing the Google certification for educators just so that I can make sure I've mastered this whole Google Classroom thing. Looking at whatever you teach and figuring out how to be the best teacher you can be on this computer.
Wow.
And just making it work. Spend your summer doing that so that if, God forbid, in August, I have to be on this Zoom, that it's going to be the best daggone Zoom class that's out there.
Awesome. Anybody else? Carmen, go ahead.
And take a step back and know that even after World War II, they weren't in school for a whole year. There are still doctors, there are still lawyers, there are still great teachers, there are still great things that happened after that. So don't be so concerned about the unknown, which I know frightens us to death.
Yes.
Know that because we believe in God, know that He has our steps ordered. Know that if you put your trust in Him, He will lead your path. And know that even after this, there will be great things that come out of our children and that come out of our students.
Wow.
Amen.
Jewel. Go ahead, Jewel.
There are things that you have to consider. You have to consider globally. You have to consider that social emotional side because that is important. The social emotional side for the parent, for the student, and there's resources. Every county should have a COVID resource site that you can go to as far as the educational system, where you can get the social emotional help, you can get the academic help, you can get the food pantries, you can see where you can pick up lunch and breakfast for the kids. And they're not asking which public school you go to. If you need it, it's there. That's the first thing that we need to consider. But I like to also I want the parents and I want the teachers to realize that there should be relationship before rigor, grace before grades,
Wow.
patience before programs, and love before lessons.
Wow.
Because that's the only thing that's going to keep us through this whole pandemic, is remembering that, and be kind to yourself when you're doing that.
Wow. Wow. That is awesome. Milan, what should students or even recent graduates be considering as we go forward into the fall?
I definitely think that, like Ms. Waldman said, having a relationship with your professors, learn to communicate with your teachers and know that they want the best for you and that they want to support you. So being able to reach out and taking control of your education.
Yeah. Wow. I want to
May I jump in?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Milan. As a college professor, I can tell you that is absolutely true. We do care about our students and we want the best for you.
Mm-hmm.
I said it jokingly before about a support group. I said it laughingly, but it really is serious. There are so many children who are, this is the social worker in me coming out. There are so many children who during this time are experiencing increased hunger. They're experiencing increased abuse. They're experiencing some things that are really horrendous. Mm-hmm. And so if you are finding yourself stressed, you're short, you're frustrated, you're depressed, reach out for help. Sometimes I just text some of my friends and just say, how are you today? Just checking on you. Wow. It means the world to people. Even though we are away from one another physically, it is so important that we connect socially, spiritually, psychologically, just to check in. Because if there's been no other time when we needed someone, we definitely need one another now. And make sure that you reach out and get the support, even though distant, the support that you need.
Love it. In about 15 seconds or so from each of you, just want you to wrap this up with a final thought. What's the one last word that you want teachers, that you want parents, that you want your support community to know?
I have something.
Go ahead, Carmen.
Dear parents, don't stress about schoolwork. In September or whenever we get them, I will get your kids back on track. I'm a teacher, and that's my superpower. What I can't fix is social emotional trauma that prevents the brain from learning. Wow. So right now, I just need you to share your calm, share your strength, and share your laughter with your children. No kids are ahead. No kids are behind. Your children are exactly where they need to be. With love, all the teachers on planet Earth.
Wow. Wow. Love it. Jewel, final thought.
Be kind to yourself.
Mm-hmm. Love it.
Teachers, administrators, parents, students, be kind to yourself. We've never experienced this before. So you have to be kind to yourself and practice self-care.
Love it. Milan, final thought.
There are resources that are available to us as students, and we need to access them and reach out to other students and get support, and we can get through this together.
Yeah. Ms. Dickerson.
I would say to students, don't slack off. Know that your teachers love you, and that when you come into my class, I want you to leave knowing more than you knew when you came in, and that's like a responsibility that I have. So just keep doing what you're doing. This is new for all of us, and we're going to get through it together. And I always say this to my sixth and seventh grade parents: don't worry about it. I'll fix it in the fall. You know what I'm saying? I'll work it out in the fall.
Yeah.
We'll get to it. Yeah.
Dr. Stennis, final thought.
Yeah, God's grace is sufficient.
Wow.
God's grace is sufficient. So it will be okay. We don't have all of the answers, but in the end, it will be okay.
Yeah, it will be okay. We've heard a common thread through all of this. And even though we are in this pandemic, and even though we're in this time together, the common thread that you've heard is that we make it out of this together. We make it out of this by sticking with each other. We make it out of this by showing grace, by being kind, by viewing each other as human beings, not as competitors, but as people who really have each other's best interests at heart. So don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to access your village so that you can make it through this time with your family, with your community, with your children, and with yourself intact. This has been COVID Conversations. We appreciate you joining us here at Emmanuel-Brinklow, and we look forward to the next time that we're able to connect together. See you soon.